In the news lately, you might have seen a story about an alleged $165 million tax fraud by a company called Plutus Payroll. What's interesting about this is that the bosses of Plutus Payroll, including Adam Cranston, you can see there, they're all very young. They're all mid to late 20s, early 30s, so they're not too far removed from high school. And what they're alleged to have done is taken $165 million that was meant for the tax office and kept it for themselves. So these are all allegations at this point, and one of the interesting allegations is that the Deputy Commissioner of the Australian Tax Office is Michael Cranston. Why is that significant? Because obviously Michael and Adam share the same name, and that is because Michael is Adam's father. So at the moment there's allegations not that Michael was a part of the scam, but perhaps that he maybe tipped off his son and his friends, but none of this has been before the courts or been proven, so we want to keep that in mind when we look at it. So where's the scam, and how do we want to get back to accounting with this? Well, to sort of go back to the basics, we just want to look at, well, in the real world, how do you pay employees their wages? You're obviously going to be an employer, hopefully one day. You're going to have employees. You just give them the money, right? It's not that easy. What first needs to happen is there's a whole bunch of forms employees need to fill out. They need to fill in contracts, tax forms with their tax number, and superannuation forms, which everybody earns 9.5% super on their income, and that has to be saved until your retirement. Well, there's a lot of paperwork that's involved. And that's not just for all employees, that's every single employee has to do all this paperwork. So before you can even pay someone or put them on the payroll, you've got to get all these forms sorted out. So you get that done, and then you can pay people their wages, right? Well, not quite. There's still some other things to do. Everybody's earning 9.5% superannuation. You've got to give all of your employees super to the super companies. So you might see some names you've heard of there. Super companies like Hostplus, Cbus, Rest, Industry Super Funds, and so on. You've got, as the employer, got to give them 9.5% of your employees' wages, and they will hold on to it until the employees retire. And the other thing you got to do is you got to pay taxes. Everybody has to do that, whether you're a business or an individual. And as an employer, the type of tax you pay is a little bit different from you as an individual. It's called pay-as-you-go or PAYG taxes. And what that is this is just an average. It usually averages out for an entire pay force around 30% of wages. That's just an estimate. It can be higher or lower depending on how much your employees earn. But yeah, it's going to be about 30% of your wages on top need to go back to the government as taxes, and that's called PAYG. That's used to pay for all our roads and hospitals and defence and so on, all that stuff. So why not let someone else do all the hard work? We just saw how difficult it is to set up a payroll and get all these payments done and pay all the right amounts. So a lot of people have come up with a business idea, and Plutus Payroll weren't the first, but they thought, you know what, why don't we just do all the hard work for you in exchange for a small service fee? So what Plutus Payroll could do is they could get all the forms done for each of your employees, keep them on record, and that's one less thing you have to do as a business owner. You can worry about running your business. Then when it's payday, you give the money for wages to Plutus Payroll, and they'll give it to each employee. They'll figure out who's meant to get what. And better yet, they'll deal with the other stuff as well. They'll get 9.5% of the wages, and they'll pass that on to the superannuation companies, and they'll get your percentage of PAYG tax and also give that to the tax office. So it makes a lot of sense. There's going to be a service fee for you have to give to Plutus Payroll to do this for your business, but it's probably worth it because you don't want to have the hassle of doing this yourself each and every month. And in fact, Plutus Payroll got very good at it, and they started signing up many employers. It's important to remember it's not just one little business with half a dozen employees. These are hundreds of businesses with thousands of employees. And where we need to sort of get back to is think, well, how did the alleged scam work then? We've seen how the system works. Where's the breakdown? So let's say Plutus Payroll had a lot of employers. I've just got 6 there as an example, but it would be hundreds and possibly thousands. And there's going to be a lot of employees who need their wages. So the employers would give, let's say this month's payroll all up is $10 million. So all those employers give $10 million to Plutus Payroll. They'll then give it to the employees, and that's just an expense. We deal with expenses all the time in VCE Accounting, so we can account for that. What we need to remember then in the real world is that 9.5% of those wages, so in this case that'd be $950,000 of 10 million, well, that's got to go to the superannuation companies. And there's no allegations that Plutus Payroll didn't give the super companies all of their money. That part's fine. So where's our problem? Our problem is in this roughly 30% of wages, which end up becoming taxes to give to the government. So that was being given to Plutus Payroll, and then it's meant to be given, so let's say payroll was 10 million this month, well that'd be $3 million in tax is meant to go to the Australian Tax Office. And that's where our problem is. So let's have a look in a little bit more detail what's happened. Well, let's say the 30% was $3 million for this month. $3 million was meant to go to the tax office. Let's just say not all of it did. I'm just making these numbers up. This has no bearing on the Plutus Payroll case or any other case. But let's just say $2,950,000 went to the tax office. So most of it, the vast majority of it. Okay, well, there's $50,000 missing. Where did that go? Well, we could send that to some companies called ABC Limited, XYZ, 123 Limited, and so on. But if I'm working at Plutus Payroll, I can't steal that money and give it to a company that I own. So what I would do, and the allegation is, they've put in the Plutus bosses would actually get those people. So we could just go back a step. The director there, J. Smith, director M. Jones, director T. Tan, whatever the names are, whoever they are. These people were being recruited by Plutus Payroll, allegedly, remember, to be directors on paper only. These companies didn't do anything, and a lot of these people, these directors, were unemployed people. A lot of them had previous drug convictions. These are people who didn't really have a choice. They just wanted and needed money, as the newspapers are saying at this point. So they would just give the $50,000 to the Plutus bosses, and the allegation is, well, why would they do that? Mightn't they get something in return? And they would. They get a little bit of money as a sort of, compensation for passing on the $50,000. And there's reports in the newspapers of one woman, young woman, 18, 19 years old, getting $500 a month, or perhaps a prepaid gift card, that sort of thing. So not a lot of money, given how much was alleged to have been stolen, which is $165 million. So that's where the allegations lie. There's $165 million have been taken that way. Why don't we get to the question and go, well, how come the tax office didn't notice the alleged scam until $165 million had been taken sooner? Well, no one knows the answer to that question. We've got to have a trial. We don't even know where the money was taken. These are always allegations until proven guilty. So put it in perspective though, $165 million sounds like a lot, but the 2014-15 financial year, that's the most recent year we have data for, there are 13,213,814 individuals did a tax return. 914,508 businesses did a tax return. That's so much paperwork coming into the Australian Tax Office. We're not talking about overall a lot of people who Plutus Payroll would do their taxes for, or their wages for. So if you add up the total tax collected for the financial year that year, it was $343,465 million. What was Plutus, the allegation is, to have taken? $165 million. So if you were to look at the ATO total tax collected as a big dot, how much is the Plutus Payroll bit? Well, it's nothing. It's a little speck. It's a tiny little part. And if you do the maths on it, it works out at about 0.048 of 1%. So that might be a reason why this alleged scam went for so long, because the tax office has a lot to do. It doesn't have as many employees as it used to. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot of money. What's made this case so interesting is the allegation that, well, perhaps having the father of the alleged perpetrator being in charge of the tax office, maybe there's a connection there, or perhaps there's none at all. So a really good case study. Again, it's important to remember that these are all just allegations. Nothing's been found or nothing's even gone to court yet. But have a read, just Google Plutus Payroll, and you'll see lots of good stuff there. It's a good little accounting story, and make sure you try and follow it as it gets closer to trial in the coming months.